And round 2, from my understanding, is that this seems to be the whole criteria for a flu virus. The second round is the round that actually becomes the most deadliest round of flu, and then it will make a third round before it literally kind of burns itself out. My understanding is that that the second round could also be administered because the first round didn't give them the results the results weren't quite as pandemic as what they originally thought. That it could come in various forms, such as mandatory vaccinations, which is that flu virus, and it gets into all of the things. And there's many people out here who are talking about it. There was a couple of experts, if you will, that were talking about this whole thing just a couple of weeks ago. So I found that pretty interesting. And then right after that, your report came out talking about these ill winds coming around 9 times. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if it's not radioactive, like the mistake, so to speak, right, it could be talking about this flu and then something else yet that may has not yet presented itself. When I'm trying to, I'm out here and I can see these old dots and they connect sometimes for me, sometimes they don't. So, there you go. That could be part of it.
It does look like that the swine flu component, or whatever that you want to call it, is going to be a significant player in events over the next part of this year, and may even contribute as a trigger for the economic issues that will settle over the whole planet in November. The economic issues are actually going to be in existence and out there, but it may be that we're actually sort of pushed over the visible edge, if you will, by a very large actual outbreak. Some of the temporal markers we're looking at would suggest that, say, sometime after the equinox, which would be the 21st of September, so from there until the 25th of October, we should see if the flu is going to get to that nasty level and participate at the level that we think it will, there should be language out and about, like in some of the major newspapers or on TV or something, that suggest 1 million people a day are reporting being ill in the U.S.
Right.
If we reach that level, then I would say that that's a major supporting set of language for further going into that aspect, and I would urge everybody at that stage to be very, very careful, because it indeed will get to the point where we have a significant socially altering event go on.
Well, if it gets to that point where there's that many people that are ill and sick, it really shuts down the entire world, because people can't go to work. Things can't be done. Just
correct. You don't get deliveries, and you
right.
have other people, but the ramifications become quite severe, because at some point you start having power systems shut down because people are not in the power plants doing things.
Right.
We have other issues in terms of delivery of medicines and so on, and it actually starts this compounding issue that then takes disease to a whole new level. And for our reports, it even talks about some of the opportunistic aspects of that, in the sense that as the healthcare system starts to break down under the load of the initial pandemic release, then all the other opportunistic diseases start to come on in, not only because people are not going and getting healthcare because they're afraid of getting the disease, but also because healthcare professionals are not there and are not delivering the level of care, and then these other diseases start to propagate, and there you go.
Right, exactly. So it can be like that domino effect.
Correct.
So when we're looking at that 9 times on the ill winds, let's focus on that for just a minute,
sure,
if we can, because the other aspect of this is chemtrails are everywhere. Is there anything that indicates that perhaps this could not necessarily come from just the flu thing that we were talking about, or from the Iran-Iraq mistake thing that's in the language? But could it be something that's actually put into the air, that because of the jet streams it goes down, that's actually inserted or injected, if you will, into the systems, into our airflow?
I see what you're discussing, and we have that kind of stuff within our unknown and officially denied container, that entity. We have the representation for the chemtrails. I mean, that, of course, includes the idea that indeed there's more than just one simple explanation for their existence. And
sure,
there's a weirdness in there that I have to admit does exist. Now, we didn't report it because it's really part of the alien wars, but there's a subset in there that would suggest that how do I want to phrase this so we don't get all wonky about it? That chemtrails are not necessarily even as mysterious as we might think that they are. They're much more mysterious because it's not necessarily jets that are doing them.
Right.
Okay, and that also that this is not necessarily under the control of the powers that be here on Earth. That they're maybe participating in this and not really understand what's going on with it. I have to say that we do have, I personally at least felt the relief of the chemtrails as it broke a situation a few days back when we had 99 or 100 degree in temperature, and then they had chemtrails at night, and that was it. It broke down to the upper 70s the next day. So they are changing the albedo of the planet relative to our new white sun. But there could be other more nefarious reasons for including the particular mix that they have. Right. Some of the items identified by some of the chemtrail researchers do not fall in those patents that I've read about aerosol spraying. Right. In other words, from like 1992 onwards, in 1996, there were 4 or 5 patents relative to putting aerosols into the atmosphere in some method for weather modification or solar control. Then we scaled up to about 400 patents over the course of the 96 through to about 2004. But the patents that are referenced in there are some of the chemicals that we're seeing reported don't fall in any of those. So they may have some other purpose entirely, HARP or who knows what else. Plus, we have the further issue here. Within the ill winds, there's the concept of it being, whatever the it is, the nasty part, being pushed. And that is to say, pushed around the planet. And in a remote kind of an interpretation, we could maybe say that it's the breakdown of the magnetosphere, that is to say, the giant hole in our magnetic sphere around the Earth, that might be pushed around, so to speak. And that would have rather dire results because it allows extra ultraviolet in, and you get all kinds of problems with your crops, and plants can suffer, get burned in the matter of just a few minutes with this particular, without the shielding provided by the magnetosphere.
Right.
So there's all kinds of nasties and worries out there. Now our issue at this point is, or our issue in presenting it in the reports, is that at some point we lose confidence in the details, and it's just pretty much a guess as to which set of details is going to make the bigger, nastier picture mature or fulfilled, if you will. But it really doesn't matter at some point. The same kind of precautions that one would take for pandemic flu, such as isolation, washing all the time, etc., are also really good in the case of particulate matter that's radioactive that's falling out of the sky.
Right.
You know, wash all the time, avoid people or beings, cows, etc., that are contaminated.
Right.
Anything you bring inside, wash. Well, the same thing is going to be pretty much the case with flu at that level of a pandemic.
Right. Okay, this might be a really good place for us to take a really short break, and then when we come back, we're going to kind of wrap this part of that up, and then we're going to continue on with some other language here. There's a lot in this report. Even for 40-some pages, there's a lot in this report. One of the things that I kind of wanted to get back into for just a minute is this whole, because in your report, we talk about the ill winds going around the Earth 9 times. Can you just share briefly what that pattern would look like? Obviously
Sure.
This is just predictive.
If we're talking about the pattern is actually fairly clearly described within the Terra entity. And regardless of where we want to start, let's just pick Iran as though there were an Israeli mistake, but it doesn't really matter. Basically, what the data is suggesting is that the jet stream would cross the southern area of Iran, pretty much along the Gulf, go across India through Southeast Asia, and take a northerly tack in Indonesia and head up the coast of China with Japan and along Russia, cross the Bering Straits, come down the west coast of North America. Then at the point that then we have a little bit of variance that we just don't know what's going to happen. There is actually a distinct set of data that suggests that the jet stream could get down to California, and depending on the conditions at the time, could then take a left, so to speak, and head across the southwest, across Texas, across into the southeast, and then go up the eastern seaboard. If it goes that route, it'll stay, at least on the first pass, it'll stay slightly off the eastern seaboard itself. So if we're talking radioactivity, this is probably pretty good. It also may be a metaphoric indicator that the flu would, that's what we're talking about, would travel a path down the west coast, across the south, and then kind of skip in terms of intensity, at least on the first pass, the eastern seaboard. However, there's some level of stuff here, so that seems to suggest that what's going to happen, or that an alternative exists, that the jet stream could go a little further south than normal, get into Baja, and then come up diagonally, go through the nation as a sort of kitty corner, and pop out in the northeast, and then head on over to Britain, and then down the coast into the area of Europe. Now, there's some doubt in our particular predictions because there's some qualifiers to how it's going to progress, and then if we start looking for backup data in other entities, it gets a little bit murkier. However, the implication is that whatever is going to afflict us in terms of the ill wind will hit the west coast and move eastward, and on the first pass we may or may not have a really nasty implication for the eastern seaboard, but on the second and subsequent passes it'll be pretty much evenly distributed across the country.
Not good.
No, not good. No.
Not good. Okay. So, all right.
But it's a planetary problem. It's not just us.
No, right. But, right, exactly.
Now, of course, we also have to note that there's some backup in reality. It's not just us, not jobs out here in the woods kind of pondering all of this. There's actually strange things going on out and about. There's rumors, for instance, that the DoD, the Department of Defense of the United States, is setting up a pandemic control center in its far eastern command centers in Japan, as though they know the South Central Asia area will be a hotbed of it. And that is also where our prediction of the ill wind striking first and hardest occurs. So it's kind of even further disquieting to find that reality is backing up some of our more outlandish predictions here.
Yeah, that talks about all the underground bases and all the underground facilities that are all across this globe. It also talks about that as well. There's people, there's just so much of that. I'm trying to get somebody on to actually talk about those things on the show here next month, by the way, is who's got inside information on these facilities, locations, whereabouts, et cetera, and so forth.
You mean Richard?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
just curious, yeah.
Yeah, no. But, so we're trying to find some, getting that information, but I'll talk to you later about that.
Okay.
I'll be talking to you later about that. So there's, the thing is to get the information out because, knowledge is power in this case.
Right.
And, with having the knowledge, there's some ways of preventing, changing, or lessening some of the effects. That's the point behind some of the work that you do here. So, in my opinion, the more we're aware, the more that,
really it comes down to my favorite motto, which is universe or chance favors the prepared mind. And really, at one point I got involved in this just as an aside. I went to the CIA way back when, and I was going to sell them my Vortex software. I figured, well, hey, here's a natural market, all these poor fellows in cube farms that have to read stuff from computers all day. And here my software allows them to read faster and better and have much higher levels of concentration. So we go to, I had this particular fellow I was involved with in the Vortex software business, and we go over to the CIA and language.